Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to all of you out there. A good morning if it's the start of the day for you. Good afternoon and good evening. Would love to hear from you if I am clearly audible to all of you. Please let me know in the comments section if you guys can hear me, if I am audible to all of you. Just quickly post a yes. And once again, welcome to this webinar on the art of involved and evolved reading. Do let me know from where you're watching this webinar and at what level of preparation you are at. Are you just starting? Have you taken the GMAT already? Or is this the first time you're going to take GMAT? So guys, I'm going to set the agenda of the session quickly. But in the meantime, let me see who all are there. A hi from your end would be wonderful. And in the meantime, let me quickly start off by introducing myself. So my name is Sunita, and I'm going to be the host for this entire session. I've been the verbal expert at GMAT Wiz for quite some time now. I love teaching. It's my passion to find simple solutions to problems students face during their prep. The agenda of today, and I'm sure reading and comprehension is a problematic area for most of you. If you've already taken the GMAT and haven't been successful at it, and even if you're beginning to prepare or just thinking of taking the GMAT, I'm sure reading and comprehension is something that you definitely find a challenge. So, what we're going to discuss today very quickly, the first few minutes we're going to spend on talking about the importance of RC in GMAT. We'll also quickly talk about why most of us falter at reading and comprehension. And then we're going to get into the meatier part of the program, and that is talking about the art of involved and evolved reading. With the right approach, RC can really be very, very simple. And we're going to do all of this through a bunch of questions, and we'll talk about improvement strategies as well. So, guys, let me know if you are excited with this. Hi, Hasnain. Okay, Mughal Hasnain. Aqib. Then we've got Brahma ready. Okay, great. So we have Brahma from Pakistan. We've got, sorry, Hasnain from Pakistan, Brahma from Andhra. And then I've got a bunch of others who haven't yet reached out a hello. So, guys, once again, a very, very warm welcome. Okay. I'm going to immediately bring up a passage for you guys to bite your teeth into. So just give me a moment. Yep. So before we talk about, uh, why people falter at RC, let me quickly take you through why RC questions are very, very important on the GMAT. See, any student on any exam is likely to face at least 3 to 4 passages, if not more, around 12 to 15 questions, which basically means slightly over 1/3 of your total 36 questions is going to come from reading and comprehension. We all know that GMAT is an adaptive test, and if you get 3 or 4 RC questions wrong consecutively, it's going to be really bad for your score. All right, one after the other, if you've got string of mistakes, which is more likely on a reading and comprehension passage, if you haven't understood the passage, it's going to bring down your score badly. To just cite an example, let's say student A gets all the sentence correction questions incorrect and the rest of the RC and CR correct. And then we've got student B who's got all the CR incorrect and RCs and SCs correct. And then we've got student C who's got all RCs incorrect, but all CRs and SCs correct. So this is the kind of score difference you're going to see, all right, among these 3 students. You will see that student C who got all RCs incorrect suffers the most, okay? Why? Because GMAT penalizes RC questions heavily because you could get them wrong consecutively. All right, so that is why RCs are very, very important. One after the other, you cannot afford to get questions wrong. So if you make mistakes in RCs, especially in the first 3 quarters, your score will never really, rise. Okay. A quick question to all of you out there, guys. What are your fears regarding RCs? I would love you to share that before we get into the program. Yes, what scares you most about RCs? What is it that is scariest? Go ahead, guys. Come on. Quickly, your involvement would really be wonderful. Otherwise, it's just me talking. So Athirat says inference. From that, I mean, I get it. Take it, Athirat, that you mean inference questions are your fear factor. What else, guys, when it comes to reading and comprehension, what is it that puts the fear in your mind? Go ahead. Come on, guys. I promise you, after today's session, your fears will subside. But I need to know, what is it that scares you most about RCs? So Jaideep has pointed out a particular question. Why does the author bring up this sentence? So Jaideep, the kind of question you're referring to, we at GMAT Wiz call it function-based questions, where questions like, okay, what is the function of this sentence? What is the function of this example? What is the function of this line? Why has the author used this line? And so on and so forth. So Jaideep, I have a question for you today. Then Anjana says, race against time. Well put, Anjana. Yes, time is an issue. The clock is constantly ticking, 65 minutes, 36 questions, and the race is on. Athirat also says American literature. So I take it, Athirat, what you mean is certain topics scare you. Shreya says similar answer options. So you mean very closely worded options. Paul says losing track after a few paras. Yes, that's really, that does happen. So recall, not able to recall what's happening. Great. So time management, confusing options. Brahma, you're a fresher. Don't worry. If you're a fresher, this is a session for you. All right. So and Shorjit says end up choosing the wrong one when you have finalized. So guys, let me put all of these thoughts together for you. So unfamiliar genre means topics which worry you. Poor recall means not able to remember what you've read. You're not able to remember which paragraph was talking about what. Close answer choices in time management. All these things, I'm sure, create a mental block in your mind. Okay. No, this mental block is your biggest problem, guys. Till the time you keep thinking these things are something that I can't get over, you will face a certain mental block. And in order to overcome the mental block, I'm sure you're trying all sorts of strategies. So these are some of the strategies that some of my students have discussed with me that they have been trying in the past. Somebody says, okay, just scan through the passage quickly, don't read it in detail, and then you can come back to the passage again and again and again when you're answering the questions. Or somebody says, okay, read the first line and read the last line, and then go to the questions, and then come back for the answer choices. Somebody says, okay, focus more on the first and last line of each paragraph, and then skim through the rest of the passage. Somebody says, read the question first and then search for the answer. My question is, if you have tried these strategies, have they worked? Have they really worked? If they had worked, you wouldn't be here. So they don't work. And they don't work because, okay, we'll talk about that in a moment, but they don't work is one part of it. The other is they actually cost you a lot of time. And sometimes your accuracy is compromised, you lack confidence. All this happens because you do not have a precise understanding of the passage. Without understanding the passage, you go to the questions and then you're all at sea. Okay. So here's the first passage, guys. Let me know if you can see this clearly on your screens. So yes, Jaideep, always read the passage completely, guys. Now there is no compromise on this. Okay. Reading the passage first, thoroughly, completely, precisely is very, very important. I'm going to show you how to read it best. We are going to talk about the approach today. But here's a passage for all of you guys. I'm going to give you, okay, you guys tell me how much time I should give you for that small passage and that one question. Go ahead, guys. You tell me how much time I should give you. This is your call. You tell me. Alak, it's not about the percentage of accuracy required in RC per se, but I would say definitely you need 75% plus accuracy in RCs. Jaideep says 2.5 minutes, guys. 2.5 minutes will be enough for you. One says 2 minutes. Rishabh says 3, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5. Okay. So I'll tell you what, because I want you to succeed at this and I want you to read this paragraph carefully, I'm going to give all of you 3 minutes. Okay. Okay. Make that 4 minutes. Guys, get started. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to switch off the camera. And there's a small request here. Until I ask you to post your answers, please don't post it even if you have completed the question. Okay, even if you finished solving the question, don't post your answers. I'll tell you when to post it so that everybody gets an equal chance of an independent thought process. Okay, so your time starts now, 4 minutes, and I'm going to mute myself. For those of you who've just joined us, we are going to talk about the best approach, the most effective, most efficient approach to read passages for the GMAT RC. All right, guys. So I'm going to mute myself and put this full on screen. Yes, your time has already started, guys. So until I request you to put in your answers, please hold on to your answers. Guys, I'm just trying to move away the passage from the logo. Just give me a moment. I can see that the logo is blocking some part of the passage. I'm just going to minimize the font. Can you guys read this clearly? Is this readable? Guys, I'm going to give you half a minute more because of the disturbance caused by the logo. 30 seconds more. All right, you can start posting your answers, guys. 3.5 minutes gone. Sorry, 4.5 minutes. You can start posting your answers if you're ready with it. All right, let me see. Okay, so I've got Shreyas with D, Atirath B, Ravi B, Vaibhav D, Alak D, Anjana D, Sandeep D, Ramesh B, Jaydeep C. So it's B, C, D so far. I'll wait for some more answers because a lot of you are watching this, as I can see from my end. Farizma also says B. Devesh B. Okay, while I'm waiting for some more of you to put in your responses, here are a couple of things that I'd like to ask, So, some common thoughts. Now, if you guys agree with any one of these thoughts, just post a yes in the chat, Did you find the language was dense? Did you think to yourself, oh my God, the language is so dense, I can't understand? And did some of you continue reading even if you did not understand something? Like you thought, okay, I don't understand this fully, but let me go ahead nonetheless. In the end, did you land up with just a rough understanding of the paragraph? Did you just have a broad idea about, okay, some royalists, some patriarchalism, some feminists, and conflicts? Were you confused between two option choices? Did you end up rereading the passage or some parts of it? And did you mark some choice that you weren't confident about? Let's see how many of you faced one or more of these problems. Okay. So I've got yes through and through. See, guys, I understand this because I have also at a point of time in the past been on the same, boat as you are today. Okay. Shreyas is honest enough to say yes for everything. So I get that, guys. Okay. Are you all ready, guys, to to understand the most effective approach? Just give me a moment. Let me, yep. Okay. Let's begin with what to do. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to read the passage so that you land up with a very, very precise understanding. Okay, guys? Please pay attention. I was some network issue. Can you guys hear me now? Please let me know if I am audible to all of you, audible and visible. Okay, great. Very sorry about that. I think something wrong with the network or the online connection. I'm not sure which one. So let me, as I was saying, I will explain how to follow the involved and evolved reading method. Just pay very close attention to what I'm doing, where I'm stopping, how I'm connecting the dots. Okay. So, yeah, let me stop the camera and give full attention to this. Okay, great. So here I go. Now, one thing that I'll point out is never read long sentences in one breath. The usual practice is one starts reading here and then stops only when the sentence finishes and then goes back and rereads. Okay? Don't do that. Look at this sentence, how long this is. It starts here, it ends here, nearly some 40 words. Okay? And then you have, let me point out, the second sentence starts here and you know where it ends? It ends here. This is one single sentence, long sentence, okay? And then the third sentence starts here and ends here. The entire paragraph is made up of just three sentences. And if you don't read your sentences carefully, correctly, you will mess up your understanding, okay? So always break your sentences into small chunks and read them so that you don't have to reread. You're not going to get confused. Okay. It is an odd but indisputable fact. I'll stop here and in my mind, I'll say, okay, who is saying this? The author is saying something and the author finds something odd, but the author doesn't dispute that fact. Okay. So taking note of author's opinion is very, very important. Nearly 70% of the questions on the GMAT RCs are based on the author's opinions. Okay. So be careful there. It is an odd but indisputable fact. What is that fact? So, whatever is going to come up after this connector here is going to be the fact which the author finds odd. Okay. What is that fact? 17th century English women. Okay. So, let's call them 17 EW for our reference, who are generally regarded as among the forerunners. Forerunners means the beginners of modern feminism. Okay, so these 17 EW are the early feminists, the beginners of feminism. Okay, so these are almost all identified with the royalist side. All right, now if you know what the royalist side means, good. Highly likely you don't. What should you do? Should you get worried? Should you panic? No. Remember, GMAT will give you, context to understand what that royalist side really means. For now, you know that the royalist is written with a capital R. So it is some particular side, some particular, let's say, entity. And all these early English, feminist English women all came from the royalist side. Okay, in the conflict between royalists and parliamentarians known as the English Civil Wars. Now, if I break this up, what I have is I've got this conflict. I'm just going to write this here for my understanding. And in the conflict, you have the parliamentarians and you have the royalists. Okay, and you have all the 17th century English women, the early feminists coming from this side. This understanding has to be very clear in your mind. And this whole thing, the author finds odd but true because it is indisputable. So, throughout the passage, or even if there's any question that comes up, you know that this is a fact. Clear? Okay. So, note making is your personal choice, guys. Maybe when you're practicing, you can, create your own way of making notes, especially for those of you who lose track of what you're reading. But otherwise, gradually try to do away with the habit of note making. Just write down a few words here and there. So, for those of you out there who I just want it there that the author finds a fact odd but true. And what is that fact? Great. Now that we are done with reading the first sentence clearly, because the first sentence is going to set the entire tone, let's move on. Since at GMAT Wiz, we ask a student to lay a lot of emphasis on transition words. You can call them conjunctions, connectors, whatever you might want to, but they are basically very crucial points that show correlation between one sentence and the other. So, what we've done is for the first sentence, we have understood what is being said, who is being said, but right now we don't know why the author is talking about 17th century English women, royalist side, parliamentarians, and so on. We don't know that. But these three W's are going to be the crux of our reading methodology. Let's move on. Since royalist ideology is often associated with radical patriarchalism, I'm going to kind of dumb this down and say, okay, because royalist philosophy is related with patriarchalism, okay, of 17th century theorist Robert Filmer. So, because of this, now there is a dash. Look at this portion between dash. It's not that I'm going to ignore this. Please never make that mistake. But I'm going to come back to this part. Let me complete the sentence for now. So, because royalism, or rather royalist ideology, is related with patriarchalism of Filmer, historians have been understandably puzzled. So, the author empathizes with the historian's puzzlement. By what? Puzzlement by what? What are the historians puzzled by? Again, another fact that royalist women wrote earliest extended criticism of subordination of women in marriage. Okay, so remember the royalist women, the early feminists, they criticized the subordination or the suppression of women in marriage, and they wrote the earliest systematic assertions of women's rational and moral equality with men. All right, so these royalist feminist women, they basically criticized, okay, subordination of women, and they wanted rational and moral equality of women with men. Once you scribble this in your head, you know exactly what is being said here. Okay, now we return to the part between the brackets. What is patriarchalism? That has been defined, it seems. Patriarchalism equates, so let me clear this all this up here so that we can focus on what patriarchalism is. Patriarchalism equates family and kingdom. So for patriarchalism, family equals to kingdom, and asserts the divinely ordained absolute power of the king, and by analogy means comparison of the male head of the household. So family, male head equals to king of the kingdom equals to power. So the male head is all powerful, the king is all powerful. This is what patriarchalism means. And the royalists' women wrote against patriarchalism, right? So we understand that the royalist women were against royalist patriarchalism. So before I move further, guys, I want to ask all of you, is this all making sense to you? Jaideep, it's almost all, which means in GMAT terms, all. Guys, let me know if this is all making sense to you. If all this reading is making sense to you, let me know by saying a yes. This is the most effective way I have found of understanding the toughest of passages. And once you read like this, you'll never need to go back to the passage, okay? So keep a paper handy. Gradually, you can do away with that as well. So I'm going to remove all of this. And let me write down in short for all of you so the author finds something odd, and then we have historians who are also puzzled. So author finds something odd, historians are also puzzled about these women. okay, that women who belonged to a patriarchalism favoring side, they actually criticize the male power. That takes care of that long sentence. Let's read on. Some historians have questioned the facile equation. Now, if you don't know the meaning of facile, don't worry. If you know the meaning of facile, it means easy. But basically, you can ignore this and read on and say that, okay, some historians have questioned the equation of royalist ideology. So, royalist ideology equals to Filmarian patriarchalism. This is not agreed to by some historians. All right. So, why is the author giving us this opinion here? Probably the author is trying to nudge us in understanding why the author finds this entire fact odd by quoting the historians that they too don't support this entire thing about royalism, patriarchalism, and these early feminists. Let's read on. Some historians have questioned the equation, that means the similarities of royalist ideology with patriarchalism. So some historians don't think, all right, some historians don't think that royalists were patriarchalists. They don't think that royalists believed in male domination. And indeed, so we have the author supporting something here. There may have been no consistent differences between royalists and parliamentarians. Now, remember, it was odd that almost all the early feminists belonged to the royalist side. Here, the author is saying there might have been no differences between these two sides, but in that case, had there been no differences, one would have expected early feminists to be equally divided between two sides. Okay, so that's the odd part. All right, that's the odd part. If there had been no differences between royalism and parliamentarian ideas on equality, then half of the women feminists should have come from the parliamentarian side as well. That's the crux of your entire paragraph. So, all in all, this paragraph, we can summarize it like this, that given the background on the ideologies of two sides, okay, it is odd that all the 17th century English women who were the beginners of modern feminism, they came from the royalist side. Royalists believed in male power, and these early feminist women who were also royalists, they actually criticized that male power, and this entire thing, the author finds it odd. Guys, let me know if this is clear. Very good. Brahma, you have raised the typical problem that the author is also facing. Why would they oppose their own ideology? That's what the author finds odd, Brahma. Okay? That's what the author finds odd, that the royalist women would oppose their, the ideology of their own people. Great. This is what we call involved and evolved reading, guys. And what I'm going to do is quickly I'm going to share the link to the trial version of our course in case you're interested in looking up our methodology further. Let me just quickly share before I move on to discussing the answer. So the answer to this, all right, the link to the free trial version of the course is there on screen, guys. V1s, what is the difficulty of this passage? It's a 700 level passage. It's a 700 level passage. So I have posted the free trial version of the course. Yes, Brahma, great. So now I'm going to get into showing you how to derive the correct answer to this question. A lot of you have got it correct, but then a lot of you have got it wrong. Okay, so let me move on to the discussion of the answer choice. Now, guys, the question was, what is the primary purpose of the author in referring to Robert Filmer? Why is the author referring to Robert Filmer here? Correct? Now, remember, if we pre-think about the question before moving to the options, Filmer was, now follow this one by one, okay? I'm reading this sentence now. Filmer was mentioned to introduce the ideology of patriarchalism, okay? Why was the ideology introduced? Ideology was introduced to tell us which ideology royalists held. Why was this mentioned? To tell us that the ideology was about absolute power of the male. And why was the absolute power of the male pointed out? To tell us that the absolute power of the male was something that the royalist women wrote against, right? So the reason why Filmer was mentioned, okay, the reason why Filmer was mentioned to show that royalist women wrote against patriarchalism. So the purpose of referring to Filmer was to show that the belief of royalist women were in contrast to their own people's ideology. All right, so Filmer was referred to in order to focus our attention on the contrast between the royalist ideology and the ideology of the royalist feminists. Is that all clear, guys? Very good, Ravi. They might be opposing because of the first hand experience they were having, but we shouldn't make any assumptions. Very good. So, guys, let me know if we are all clear so far, pre-thinking on this question before we go to the answer choices. Let me know if you're all clear with this. Let me know if you're all clear with this. Yes, Rishabh, please go ahead. Let me hide the current comment. Yes. Rishabh, go ahead and ask your doubt. I'll be glad to resolve your doubt, Rishabh. Jaideep, all women were on the royalist side. All early feminist women were on the royalist side. Not all women. All the 17th century English women who were the forerunners of modern feminism, they were all on the royalist side. We don't know whether all the men were on the parliamentary side or not. Obviously not. Guys, royalist side refers to people who support the monarchy in England. And parliamentarians refers to the people who support the democratic form of the government. Did not understand the facile equation. Okay, Rishabh, remove the word facile. Okay, historians have questioned the equation of royalist ideology and patriarchalism. Remember, right before that, we were saying that royalists believed in patriarchalism. So historians have disagreed with this. All right. Royalists. So we have historians disagree with the idea that royalists followed patriarchalism. I've just posted, I'll just put it on the screen. Rishabh, okay, that's the meaning of the facile equation part. Historians disagree with the idea. Question the equation means disagree with the idea that royalists followed patriarchalism. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to hide that quickly. Cool. Let's now move on to the elimination of the answer choice. We call it ACE. Now, here is the pre-thought answer that Filmer was referred to focus our attention on the contrast between royalist ideology and ideology of royalist feminist. So clearly A is not the answer. Okay. That the royalist ideology was radical was stated as an adjective of Filmer's patriarchalism. But the purpose was not to show how it was more radical than what it appeared to be. So you can ask yourself, is the author's intention just to indicate that royalist ideology was more radical? No. So this choice is totally out of scope. Okay. Nobody's marked A, so I'm going to move on to B. A lot of you marked B as the correct answer. Guys, what is the meaning of qualify? Can you tell me what is the meaning of qualify without Googling for the answer? What is the meaning of qualify, guys? Don't Google for the answer. Just write down what you thought was the meaning of qualify. Jaideep, qualify does not mean weaken. Rishabh says qualify means to limit. How about the others? What does qualify mean? Reduce. I'll wait for some more answers. A lot of you marked B as the correct option. Let's see if it is correct for the correct reason, or is it incorrect. Thevesh says qualify means to prove. No. Qualified does not mean to weaken. Qualified does not mean to prove. What does qualify mean? Now, on GMAT RC, sometimes you will get words like these: qualify, rebuff. You'll get words like reconcile, examine, assess, evaluate. We need to know the meaning of these. Brahma, it's not quality, qualify. You are partially correct. Anjana says not 100% correct. Make valid, no V1s, not make valid. Guys, so let me tell you the exact meaning of qualify. I think a lot of you had a kind of fuzzy meaning of qualify. So qualify means to limit the strength or meaning of a statement. Rishabh was quite right. I think some of you were also correct when you say partially correct, not 100% correct, and so on. But qualify basically means to say that something needs to be limited in its meaning. Is the author, ask yourself, guys, does the author want to limit the strength or meaning of any claim, guys? Please answer me in the chat box. Answer this question. Does the author want to limit the strength or meaning of any claim? Go ahead. Answer that question, guys. Does the author want to limit the strength or meaning of any claim? Does it match with our pre-thinking? No, absolutely. Author is not trying to restrict the meaning of anything. Robert Filmer does not want anything here. Very good. Sanat, Radhi, V1s, absolutely. So, great. The general claim is royalists followed Filmer's ideology. The author is not limiting the strength of this claim. Okay? The author is merely mentioning the claim, not changing the meaning of that claim. So B is just a distorted version of what the paragraph is saying, and therefore is incorrect. We at GMAT Wiz call such answer choices distortions, either distortions or half truths. Okay, some familiar words are picked from the paragraph and put in the answer choice to confuse students. So we have the word claim, we have the word patriarchalism, we have the word royalist ideology, and that is why it seems to be the correct answer. A lot of you mark B. B is not the correct answer. Question the view. Now, is the author, now the choice says the purpose of mentioning Filmer is to question means disagree with the view that most early feminists were associated with the royalist faction. Now, question means to raise doubts. Okay, ask yourselves, is the author doubting the fact that early feminists were royalists? See, he says indisputable fact. 17th century English women. Okay, forerunners of modern feminism. Does he doubt this? No, he calls it an indisputable fact. And therefore, this is the opposite of what your premise is saying. The passage is saying that the author does not question this fact. This choice is saying the author is questioning the fact. This is absolutely wrong. A lot of you marked C as well. D. Highlight. Look at this. Focus, highlight. Okay. apparent tension, contrast between between royalist ideology, and the ideas of early feminists and the ideology of royalist feminists. Word for word. Okay? And D is the correct answer. A lot of you got this right. What you have to ask yourself is, did you get it right because of the right reason, or did you just guess it? If you got it right for the right reason, very, very, very good. This is not an easy question. And if you marked it just because, you found something kind of a vague understanding of the passage, then you need to do better. Nobody marked E, and E is not the answer. Again, the purpose of mentioning Filmer was not to argue that royalists held conflicting opinions on all issues of family organization and women's political rights. Okay, it was more about the conflict between royalists and royalist feminists. So this is also distortion. All right, guys. So I've already shared with you the free trial version of our course, and I'm going to talk to you quickly about the difference this kind of involved reading can make. We focused rather than on reading, we focused more on comprehension rather than reading speed. And remember, that can make all the difference to your understanding. You will have to practice this, yes, to become perfect with this so that the time taken is reduced, and it does get reduced. We're going to talk about the time ironing later. But involved and evolved reading simply means think like the author, guys. Put yourself in the shoes of the author. Okay? Every line that you read, try to understand what is the author trying to tell you. Break sentences into small chunks, understand the meaning of small each chunk, and connect them. Remember what I told you. Ask yourself what is being said. All right? Who is saying it? And then for every subsequent sentence, connect with the previous sentence. Ask yourself, why is statement 2 given? How is it connected to statement 1? And once you keep doing this, you will understand what the author is trying to tell you, in which direction the author is trying to push you. Take the help of transition words and conjunctions to correlate, to relate back. All right? That will help you to get the meaning as you progress through the paragraph. And then recalling the information is not going to be difficult. And finally, summarize. It's important to summarize each paragraph. 80% of the passages will have main point questions. Okay? To do all this, we help you to build the right reading and comprehension skills. You saw that I was pausing and reading. We teach you where to pause. You don't have to worry about that. You saw how I tried to simplify the meaning of words that we did not know. So we teach you how to take care of complex words by looking at the context. Making note of what is the fact, what is the opinion, which part is a fact, which part is an opinion, which is the author's opinion, which is somebody else's opinion. Understanding why the author is giving you all that information. And at GMAT Wiz, we dedicate hours. If you look at this, is the skill builder. Over 10 hours is dedicated just to help you read better, because if you don't read better, you're not going to be able to answer correctly, and you'll take more time, you'll waste time, in fact. Okay. um in case you guys want to talk to our strategy experts, if you have any queries related to your preparation, to your scores, you don't know what to do, where to start, I'm just quickly going to post a link. Thevesh, I'll answer your question in a moment. There's the link to schedule a free call with our strategy experts to talk to them about the problems that you're facing. Thevesh, if you take a lot of time to comprehend, Thevesh, could be that in general you're not very comfortable with reading. You need to make yourself comfortable around reading. So I would say inculcate the habit of reading articles, 2, 3 articles every day. Take up any American publication, New York Times or the sciencedaily.com, and any such, any American publication, because that's the language you want to catch up to, and read. Make yourself comfortable reading it. Initially, don't worry about the time, it will gradually go down. All right, it'll become second nature for you. See, when you learn a new skill now, it takes time. If you learn how to drive, you learn how to ride, you learn how to cook, anything, when you are learning, it takes time. So take your time to learn. You can visit, I've already posted the trial version of our course earlier. All right, you can visit our website and find out more about how to bring down that time, how to speed up. Okay, guys, so enough of me talking. Here's another passage for you guys to solve. I'm going to give you 4 minutes again. There are two short paragraphs there. So, those of you who've just joined us, guys, we are talking about the most effective and efficient approach to reading and comprehension for GMAT verbal section. Here is a passage for all of you to solve. Please hold on to your answers. You're welcome, Tevesh. Please hold on to your answers till I ask you to post them. Your 4 minutes start now. Forty seconds left, guys. Don't post your answers yet. I will tell you when to post. All right, guys, 4 minutes are up, and if you are done, you can start posting your answers. This was a passage from our own question bank, GMAT Whiz question bank. I hope you liked the passage. It's not as tough as the first passage, yet it is challenging, as we shall see. So I'm waiting for your answers. V1 says A. Okay, Jaideep says C. Ravi says A. All right, guys. Anjana says B. Interesting. Devesh, D. Rishabh says C. Okay, so A, B, C, D. All right, we have voters for all. A lot of you are out there, guys. Would love to have your answers on board. Jaideep says can't eliminate B. Okay. All right, let's. I don't see any more. So, guys, in case you've joined late, don't worry. Let's see if I can get some more answers. Most of the answers are around A. I think A and B. There is a few C's and one D there. Farizma says D as well, and Sandeep says B. Okay, guys, so let's get started with our analysis, our involved and evolved reading. There's another passage after this coming up for discussion. Okay. To put things simply means the author is going to simplify things for us. Induction. Now, if you don't know the meaning of induction, again, I'm saying don't worry because the context is going to develop and tell you what it means. Something called induction stresses on the individual. The individual means the singular, the one, the single. Whereas here is a transition word. The author is going to draw up a contrast between something. Deduction begins with generalizations. Okay, so the author is giving us two terms here, induction and deduction, and drawing a parallel between the two, saying that one is about the individual person, the individual things, the other is about generalizations, the common things. Okay, let's see what the author wants to say after this. Science largely began with a focus on deduction. Now, why is the author telling us how science began? Probably the author is trying to tell us the history of deduction. So, deduction was used when science began. So, science was using deduction. And what was science trying to do? Find universal laws, hoping to explain as much about the world as possible. So, basically, we are told that science in the beginning focused on deduction. That means science focused on generalizations. Okay. In the 19th century, now we are moving down in time, I think. Generalizations, that means deductions, reached a pinnacle of overuse. Okay, so too much of deduction was used after a point of time, particularly for explaining human characteristics. So, from here, we can infer that deduction was used by science, especially for explaining about human qualities. All right. While deduction became disfavored because of those missteps means probably the overuse here. So the author is saying, okay, science began with deduction reached overuse, and because deduction became overused, it lost favor. What happened? Induction rose to favor. So the author is telling us the decline of deduction and the rise of induction. Here we are being told induction rose on the heels of more quantitative techniques. So deduction probably had fewer quantitative techniques for describing cases, but induction had more quantitative techniques for describing individual objects. Remember, it was all about emphasizing the individual. If I kind of summarize this, the passage introduces two terms, induction and deduction. Induction focuses on the specific, individual, particular. Deduction starts from making generalizations. Too much of generalization had been used. and subsequently induction became more popular. So, all in all, the summary is the author talks about two terms and how one term became more favored over the other and why. All right, in a nutshell. So, it's very, very important to read like this. Para 2, the problem of induction. So, right away, we know that after talking about the rise of induction, now the author is talking about what problems were there in induction itself. The problem of induction is the impossibility of observing every individual case. So, induction was about studying the individual, but here the author is saying it is not possible to study every case. In other words, so the author is going to explain this further. There is always uncertainty about what hasn't been directly observed. You can't observe everything in induction, and what you can't observe, you can't be sure about it. Okay, all right. So what I do for such things, I quickly kind of take, say, let's say there are 1,000 cases. Okay, and here the author seems to be telling us that you cannot observe all 1,000 cases. Okay, it is not possible to observe all cases. So let's say, for convenience's sake, it is possible to observe 500 cases and it is not possible to observe the other 500. All right. So to help fill the gap between the observation. So this is bringing a gap, right? Because you haven't observed. We make generalizations, okay, that are based on what has been observed. So this is observed. Generalization is made on what is observed, and these generalizations are used to fill the gap. See, drawing this diagram makes you understand how everything is happening. I'm not saying draw diagrams all the time, but for some cases, it's simpler, easier, more visually effective to do it, to do this. This is what the author is telling us. In modern science, these generalizations or predictive guides, okay, so these generalizations, okay, they take the form of scientific models. All right. So basically, it means even when I am following induction, okay, I'm still using generalization to fill the gap. That is the problem. That seems to be the problem here, that even though you are following induction, you cannot observe all cases, you have to make generalizations. Basically, it means you have to follow deduction. The author goes on to talk about different scientific models, the most popular being the empirical model. And after that, the author talks about what is the purpose of this empirical model. Okay, the empirical model is applied to unknown situations, all right, and that particular process is known as deduction. So if we have you understood this passage, guys? Evolution of COVID is one great example. Good. On the heels of means with the help of Jaydeep. So guys, let me know if you have understood the explanation properly. Then I'm quickly going to take up the question. Let me know with a yes if you have understood. If you have any doubts, please ask. Okay, thank you, guys, for replying to that. So, Jaideep, empirical model is formed with the help of induction and deduction, and it is used for deduction. Yes, deduction is still being used. Absolutely. So, Kinari says A is the answer. Okay, Kinari, we will see. So, let me quickly summarize this paragraph. This is the kind of scribbling I do if I want to understand some process and I don't want to carry the burden in my head. Effective note making is good, otherwise just writing down the facts is pointless. So here we have it. Paragraph talks about the problem of induction. The problem is you can't observe every case, and you're not going to be sure about the cases you haven't observed. Ultimately, you will use generalizations to fill in the gaps, and the generalizations will produce models that are applied to make deductions. So all in all, the second paragraph talks about the problem with the process of induction and how induction helps to develop generalized predictive models that are used for deduction. Now, if I talk about the flow of passage, and again, this is part of the methodology, the author introduces two terms and processes in the first paragraph. And in the second paragraph, the author describes the process of induction and then talks about its problems. Now, the question was, what is the problem of induction? If we pre-think, the paragraph talks about the problem of induction. Induction cannot observe each case, okay? And always the feeling of uncertainty is there about the cases that you haven't observed. To cover the gap left by unstudied cases, generalizations are drawn. So you are using deduction. Remember, generalizations are deductions. So problem with induction is this, it has to use deduction. With that thought process, if we move to choice A, all right, choice A says it means induction. So we are basically saying induction fails. Now remember, induction cannot observe every case. Does it mean induction fails in its observation? Fail is a very, very strong word. It fails only in some observations, not overall. So this part is wrong. It fails in its observations is incorrect. The passage is not saying it fails in the observation. The passage is saying it fails to observe all cases. So this part is a distortion. This part is a distortion of the first sentence. The first sentence, you can't observe every case. So we can say that induction fails to every case. But we cannot say it fails in its observations. Okay? And has to depend on speculative measures to fill the gaps. Speculative measures are also based on observed data. Generalizations are based on observed data. So we can't really just call them speculative measures. Okay, so A is incorrect. It's a distortion of the idea presented in the passage. A lot of you marked A, guys. Please tell me if you understand why A is incorrect. Is it clear why A is incorrect? Is it clear why A is incorrect, guys? Let me know if it is clear why A is incorrect. And then I'm going to move to the next choice. A lot of you marked A. Let me know if you understand why A is incorrect. Let me know that you have understood why A is incorrect. Speculative measures, Jaideep, means measures which have no basis. But we know per the passage that the basis of the gap is observed data. So we can't call them speculative measures. Okay, thank you guys. So let me move to the next option. Now, a lot of you might have discarded B because it starts with the word its advantage. So you might think, okay, this choice is talking about the advantage of induction. But never make this mistake. Always make sure you read the entire choice. Its advantage is its basis, which are specific observations of individual cases. Okay, this is true per the passage. But it too has to resort to generalization of some specific cases. Yes, this is according to our pre-thinking. Okay, and that is correct. So a lot of you marked B as the answer as well. Good. Some of you have also marked C and D. Let's see. It cannot draw up a predictive model unless. Now, unless means a necessary condition. The passage does not say that it is necessary to study all individual cases to draw the predictive model. Okay, so C is not the answer. Induction does draw up predictive models even if every case cannot be studied. It uses generalizations to fill the gap. All right, so C is definitely the opposite of what the passage is saying and is therefore incorrect. The passage does not say that it is necessary to study all individual cases. The passage only says it is not possible to study all individual cases, and therefore some cases have to be confirmed on the basis of generalization. Some of you marked D. Induction's predictive guides are all built on the basis of imprecise observations. No, guys, remember, some cases can be observed, some cannot be observed. So to say all are built on the basis of imprecise observations is wrong. All are not built on the basis of imprecise observations. Some of them may be built on, generalized data, but not all. Nobody marked T. This is the function of the process of deduction. This is not the problem of induction. So this is anyways out. Guys, a lot of you might be thinking that this is going to take a lot of time, but remember, initially it will take time when you're learning this skill of reading in the, the evolved manner, engaging yourself while reading. But if you practice this every day, the process becomes second nature. You're able to map the passage, understand the flow of idea, and derive the author's point. Trust me, this happens. I have seen so many of my students actually succeed with very high scores because they followed this method. Here's another passage for you guys. And I'll give you 5 minutes for this passage. 4 minutes to read this passage. I haven't brought up the question yet. I'm going to bring up the question once you finish reading it. So 4 minutes you have just for reading it. Make your own notes, guys. 4 minutes you have. Make your own notes. Then I'm going to bring up the question right at the end of the 4th minute. Get started. Once again, let me just quickly share the link to set up a free call with our strategy experts. You can book a call to talk to our strategy experts regarding your preparation, regarding your strategies, regarding your problems, regarding your scores, regarding your ESRs. There's the link on screen. And I'm also going to share the link to the free trial version of the course once you're through with this reading of the passage. Go ahead, guys. 2 minutes left, guys. I hope you are making 2 minutes left, guys. I hope you're making effective notes for each paragraph, the way I have showed you. So, guys, there's the question for you. Now, the passage is not visible to you, right? You have just finished reading the passage. Hopefully, you've also kind of made notes for yourself. Let's see what your recall is. I'm just going to bring up the one part of the passage for you here. Just give me a moment so that you can just refer to it. All right, let me see if I can just bring up part of it for you. Just hold on, give me a moment. There's the passage for you as well, in case you want to refer to it. You can start putting in your answers as you come up with the answer, guys. So line 29 is the second last sentence of this. I'll just kind of highlight that as well so that it's easy for you. I've highlighted apparent contradiction for you guys. Okay, so I'll wait for your answers to come in. and then I'm going to delve into the explanation. All right, I've got V1's answer. I hope I'm pronouncing that or getting that correct. Jaydeep's answer. I'll wait for some more answers to come up. Guys, there are a lot more of you there. Do participate. It gives us more encouragement. It kind of helps us understand what problems you might be facing. While I'm waiting for your answers, let me once again share with you the link to the free trial version of the GMAT Quiz course. For those of you who are thinking of starting your prep for GMAT for round one, now's the time because there's ample time actually. Let me just, there's the trial link to the trial version of GMAT Quiz course on screen. Come on, guys, answers to this question, more answers to this question. Thank you. So I've got Devesh Singh C, Sandeep D, Anjana E. Thank you so much, guys, for that sharing. So I've got B, A, D, C. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, actually. Wow. All right, let me get into the discussion of this passage. One of the better passages of GMAT, I would say. Okay, Antonia Castaneda, so let's call her AC, has utilized means has used scholarship from women's studies. So she has used women's studies, she has used Mexican American history to examine 19th century literary portrayal of Mexican women, which means how Mexican women were portrayed in the literature of 19th century. So right away, the author has introduced the subject studied by Antonia Castaneda, and the subject is 19th century literary portrayals. That means how Mexican women were portrayed in literature. Fair enough. Thereafter, you have a long sentence from here till here again. And if you read this is again an additional information. Other than that, it's given that Castaneda is referring to some scholars of women's history because remember, she was studying women's studies and Mexican American history. So, from that, probably Castaneda has derived some observation. She says that the scholars of women's history observe something about the male novelists. Okay, so scholars make an observation about male novelists in the US as a whole. And according to these novelists, women's traditional economic role in home based agriculture seemed to take a beating because the economy moved from being an agricultural economy to an industrial economy. All right, and these novelists, they identified women only by the women's domestic roles, not by the women's economic roles, it seems. So during the 19th century, women in general, guys, right now we are not talking about Mexican women. Women in general were identified by novelists only in the roles of wife and mother. That's it. And then Castaneda, the last sentence says, from here till here, this sentence, okay? Castaneda finds that during the same period means during the same 19th century period, that saw non-Hispanic women economically displaced by industrialization. Now, let's understand one thing. So far, we are talking about women in general, all right? So, this is women in general referred to by novelists in the role of wife and mother. In this general women, we have somebody called non-Hispanic, and then probably there would be somebody called Hispanic. If you don't know what is Hispanic, don't worry. Wait for the context. So, in this same time, which saw the non Hispanic women displaced economically by industrialization, they were economically disadvantaged. That same period saw the Hispanic law protected economic position of Californianas. And who were Californianas? Mexican women of the territory. So, if Hispanic law protected Mexican women, that means Hispanic equals to Mexican and non-Hispanic equals to non-Mexican. So non-Mexican women were economically disadvantaged, but Hispanic or Mexican women had economic advantage. Now remember, the author here is talking about Antonio de Castaneda's subject of study. Her subject was how were the Mexican women portrayed in novels. So this paragraph seems to be building up to that discussion. Castaneda notes a difference between the Mexican and the non-Mexican women. The non-Mexican women were economically disadvantaged. The Mexican Californianas, they were protected by Hispanic law in terms of their property rights and inheritance rights. So all in all, this paragraph basically talks about what? It introduces Castaneda's area of research and explains her findings, the difference between the non-Mexican women and the Mexican Californianas. All right. Now, if we move to the second paragraph, the first line, I'm going to speed up a bit in because we don't have time. The first line, okay, again talks about Castaneda. And the first line says that according to Castaneda, Hispanic laws are the reason why the male non-Mexican authors created a typical plot. And in this plot, there was this fortune-seeking non-Mexican men desiring to marry the rich Californianas. All right. And then Castaneda notes down a contradiction. Castaneda, in this line, this line here, if you refer to this line here, there is a contradiction here. Unflattering literary depiction of Mexicans and favorable portrayal of such women. Such women means Californianas. So this is the contradiction mentioned here. Novels show the Californianas or certain Mexican women in good light, but the same novels show common Mexicans in a bad light. So Mexican Californianas are the rich women, the rich Mexican women, and then we have the common Mexicans, the other Mexicans. They were shown in a bad light. And then the author explains this apparent contradiction. She tells us why that contradiction was there. Why was the contradiction? Because of their economic significance, these Californianas were portrayed more favorably. Now, remember, the passage started off by talking how the Mexican women were portrayed in literature in the 19th century. This paragraph is telling us the Mexican women were portrayed favorably in the literature of the 19th century. And why? Because they were economically important. Marriages with them were important, and that is why these Californianas, these Mexican women were portrayed favorably, although the other Mexicans were not portrayed favorably. Guys, let me know if this is clear to you. I know, Rishabh, a lot going on here. Trust me, RC passages will stop being a big deal once you learn this art of reading. Let me know, guys, if this is clear so that we can discuss the question at hand. I'm sure all of you, most of you who are waiting for your dinner, want this session to end. Let me know if this is clear, guys. Passage is mostly about Castaneda's field of study and what she discovers about these Mexican women being portrayed in literature. Let me know if this is clear. Yes, Jaideep. Um, you'll have to read it for yourself to get it, have more clarity. The first paragraph is telling us that women in general in the 19th century were portrayed in their domestic roles in literature of the 19th century. Second paragraph is saying that when it came to certain Mexican women, they were portrayed favorably, although the other Mexicans were not portrayed favorably. So, this is the gist of it. Okay, guys, let me start with the. So, the question is asking you, the contradiction refers to the discrepancy or difference between two entities. Now, if we pre-think, what are the two entities? Favorable portrayal of such women. Such women means the elite Californiana. And then we are talking about unflattering portrayal of Mexicans. All right. So there are two categories here. We have the Californianas, who are the elite Mexican women, versus general Mexicans. Which choice says this? Which choice is pointing out this discrepancy, guys? You can take a look at the question and answer again. Which choice is pointing out these two categories? Yes, Jaideep, the novels are being written by male non-Mexican novelists. Guys, what is the answer? Can you tell me the answer now, all of you? The answer must point out two entities: the rich Californianas or elite Mexican women and the general Mexicans. Jaideep, look closely. Jaideep, look closely. Good. Pintu, Anjana, we ones, and I'm sure the others as well. Thevesh, Rishabh, wonderful. Absolutely. So, choice D talks about literary depiction of elite Californianas versus literary depiction of other Mexican individuals. B partly is correct. Unflattering depiction of Mexicans in novels is correct. This is not the. So, the correct answer is D. The other choices, by now you know why they are incorrect. Okay. Legal status is not the point of contradiction. Marriages, strictures, not the point of contradiction. Uh, Portrayal of elite Californianas' lives and actual circumstances of those lives, not the point. So, guys, that brings us to the end of this session. Jaideep, look at what C says. Is the contradiction between the existence of marriages and no strictures are mentioned in the entire passage? All right. So, guys, the local inference trap, people focus on certain areas, trying to draw the answers only from certain areas. That doesn't work. You have to understand the entire passage, the global inference. You have to have the complete understanding of the passage, then only you will be able to answer most of these inference questions. There are a lot of other traps that we discuss at GMAT Wiz, confusing words trap, limited scope trap. These are the reasons why certain answer choices are incorrect. And bucketing your incorrect answer choices also teaches you how to eliminate options successfully. So, learning about these traps is very important. Learning how GMAT plays with these traps is very important. You must have at hand solutions which will tell you where exactly you're faltering. Okay? Otherwise, you won't be able to realize your mistakes, and it is very, very important to realize your mistakes during your practice. So we at GMAT Wiz also teach you how to tame these traps. Ours are dedicated to the ACE or answer choice elimination stage. See, what we discussed earlier, saving, time saving, you can't save, you take a lot of time. or if you go, a lot of people are concerned that if you read like this in the involved and evolved manner, it's going to take a lot of time. It's an irony, guys. Why? Most students, they read too quickly in the first read. So maybe finish reading the passage in 2 3 minutes, but you get only a rough idea of what's there in the passage, just a broad idea. And then when it comes to answering those inference questions, you have to reread, or you have to go up and down between choices. So you take more time on each question. So you land up taking 9 to 11 or even more time. And I don't think accuracy is also a very big issue. Success here. On the other hand, a GMAT with students approach is read properly first time, dedicate probably double the time, 4.5 to even 5 minutes, depending on the length of the passage. But have a crystal clear understanding of the passage so that when you're answering the questions, when you're eliminating the choices, you're confident, you save time here. So overall, you are able to solve your, questions in under a minute. 2 days back, one of my students, Arvind, he scored a 730. He improved from a verbal 29 to a verbal 39. And he was one of those people who came to me saying that, if I read this slowly, if I break up and read like this, I'll never be able to get my passages done in under 2 minutes per question. And when he came out of the exam center, he called me up and he told me that I actually looked out for the time on each passage and I solved each passage under 7 minutes by following the involved and evolved approach, because it took him that much less time on the answers. So guys, you can reach out to us on those numbers for more information, and I've already shared with you the link to set up a call. Farizma, I'm glad you got that right. And I'm sure you're going to be able to get more questions right with more practice using this method. I'm going to quickly share once again the link to set up a call with our strategy experts who can help you with your prep, who can get your prep started or restarted as the case may be. So there's the link on screen for you guys. Them would refer to the in C. I'll have to go back for that. You're most welcome, Anjana. And thank you guys, all of you. You've been an amazing audience, participating, asking questions, encouraging me to help you guys. I hope I have been able to help you guys. Okay. It doesn't matter, Farizma. Point is to see how the methodology can help you guys. All the very best to all of you. God bless you. All of you do well in your exams, and reach out to us in case you need any help. Take care, guys. You're welcome, Farizma. So Farizma, Ravi, Rishabh, Sandeep, V1s, Jaideep, Thevesh, Anjana. Who else can I see still there? The names that are there who have responded: Pintu, Ravi. Then I've got, I think Sandeep I've already mentioned. Yep. Deepti. Who else? Let's see. Kinnari. So I'm just scrolling up to check out all the names. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good day if you've just started your day, and a good night in case you're ending your day. I think I'll just show my face in the meantime, just to wish all of you uh, a very, very happy, let's say, result. All the best, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.